In 1983, a young marketing executive from Brooklyn walked into a coffee bar in Milan and had an idea that would make him a billionaire. His name was Howard Schultz. He was working for a small Seattle coffee retailer called Starbucks with 6 stores, selling beans, nothing remarkable. But standing inside an Italian espresso bar, watching strangers linger over their drinks and talk to the barista like they knew them, Schultz saw something America was missing. Not coffee. America had coffee. What it was missing was the place, a third place. Not home, not work, somewhere in between where you could sit, breathe, feel like you belonged, and not have to justify being there. Schultz came back to Seattle with one mission: to build that place at scale. He bought Starbucks in 1987 for $3.8 million. By 2000, it had 3,500 stores in more than a dozen countries. By 2024, it had 39,000 stores in 86 countries and $36 billion in annual revenue. Howard Schultz sold America the third place. America bought it in enormous quantities. And then, slowly, quietly, Starbucks sold the third place back to shareholders. That is the story. And by the end of it, you will understand exactly what you have been paying $7 for. Let's start with the price. In 2000, a tall latte at Starbucks cost approximately $2. In 2008, it was around $3.55. In 2014, it was $3.65. In 2020, it was $4.95. Today, in most American cities, a basic grande latte, medium size, no customizations, nothing fancy, costs between $5.50 and $7 depending on location. The pumpkin spice latte, Starbucks' most iconic seasonal drink, launched in 2003 at around $3.25. It now costs $6.50. That is a 94% price increase since 2005, nearly double the rate of general inflation over the same period. Overall prices in the US rose approximately 62% in that same time frame. Roasted coffee prices rose 68%. Starbucks prices rose 94%. For a drink you consume in 15 minutes and throw away. Now here is the question the existing coverage never asks: where did that money go? The answer is not barista wages. In 2022, Starbucks workers began unionizing at record speed, starting in Buffalo, New York, and spreading to over 300 locations within a year. Their complaint was consistent, understaffed, overworked, and paid wages that had not kept pace with the price of the drinks they were making. When the union movement started, Howard Schultz, who had returned as CEO for his third stint, announced raises and expanded benefits for Starbucks employees. There was one condition: the raises applied only to workers at non-unionized stores. Unionized workers were explicitly excluded from the pay increases. The National Labor Relations Board issued 35 formal complaints against Starbucks for illegal anti-union tactics, firing organizers, closing unionized stores, threatening workers, and withholding benefits from employees who voted to organize. A federal judge ruled that Starbucks had displayed egregious and widespread misconduct in its dealings with employees involved in unionization efforts. Schultz testified before the Senate Labor Committee under threat of subpoena. He told Senator Bernie Sanders he had the right to have a preference, and his preference was to maintain a direct relationship with employees without a union. The man who built his company on the promise that Starbucks would treat workers better than anyone else in the industry, who once said his greatest achievement was giving part-time baristas access to healthcare and stock options, was found by a federal court to have repeatedly broken the law to stop those same workers from organizing. Meanwhile, the price of your latte kept going up. So where did the money go? In 2022, Schultz returned to the CEO role and immediately suspended $2 billion in stock buyback programs, acknowledging the company had been using shareholder returns as a substitute for genuine investment in stores and people. Read that again. $2 billion in stock buybacks. That is money that went directly to shareholders, including Schultz himself, who holds nearly $2 billion in Starbucks shares, rather than into the stores, the staff, or the experienced customers were paying a premium to access. Between 2010 and 2022, Starbucks spent approximately $17 billion buying back its own stock. That $17 billion came from the gap between what it cost to run a Starbucks and what customers were willing to pay for the experience of being in one. It came from the premium. The premium you paid because Starbucks told you it was a third place. Now add the menu problem. Howard Schultz built Starbucks around coffee, specifically around espresso. He trained baristas as craftspeople. He obsessed over the ritual. He once temporarily shut down all Starbucks stores to retrain baristas on how to pull an espresso shot properly. The aroma of the store mattered. The grind of the beans mattered. The interaction between the barista and the customer mattered. Somewhere between 2010 and 2023, Starbucks quietly became a different kind of business. The menu exploded from a focused coffee offering to over 100 drink options, lemonades, energy drinks, frappuccinos loaded with syrups and toppings, and customizations so complex that average preparation times doubled. The drinks that became viral on social media, the TikTok orders with 14 steps and 6 separate add-ons, were not aberrations. They were the business model. More customization meant higher average ticket. Higher average ticket meant more revenue per transaction. More revenue per transaction made the quarterly numbers look better. The baristas making $15 an hour were now executing orders designed to look good in a 30-second video. The store that was supposed to feel like a community hub had become a fulfillment center. By 2023, mobile orders and drive-thru combined accounted for more than 70% of Starbucks sales in the US. The comfortable chairs started disappearing. The cozy nooks were replaced with pickup counters and mobile order shelves. Some locations became pickup only, with no seating and no cafe experience, just a counter where you collected your drink and left. The third place had become a to-go window, and the people who still wanted to sit in a cafe and feel something real started going somewhere else. The clearest proof that the premium model had a ceiling came not from America, but from China. In 1999, Starbucks opened its first store in Beijing. For 20 years, China was the crown jewel of its international expansion. A nation of tea drinkers that Starbucks was slowly converting to coffee, one $6 latte at a time. By 2022, Starbucks had announced an ambition to open one new store in China every 9 hours. It had nearly 7,000 locations there and was projecting China would eventually become its largest market. Then a company called Lucken Coffee had a different idea. Lucken launched in 2017 with a simple premise: sell coffee at $1.50 instead of $6, no cozy armchairs, no third place, no brand mythology, just an app, a pickup counter, and a latte that costs roughly what it should cost. By 2019, in just 2 years, Lucken had more locations in China than Starbucks had built in 20 years. Then Lucken got caught fabricating its financial results, was delisted from NASDAQ in 2020, and most people assumed that was the end of it. It was not. Lucken cleaned house, rebuilt its business, and came back harder. By 2023, it had 16,000 stores in China, more than double Starbucks' count. In 2024, its revenue overtook Starbucks in China for the first time. In the same quarter that Starbucks reported a 14% decline in Chinese same-store sales, Lucken was growing at nearly 90% year over year. The company that committed accounting fraud, got delisted from the stock exchange, and was written off as finished, beat Starbucks in the world's most important growth market, because it charged $1.50 for a latte instead of $6. Starbucks' response was to launch a pork-flavored coffee priced at $9.45. It contained espresso, steamed milk, braised pork sauce, and a garnish of pork breast meat. It was not well received. The China story matters because it strips away every excuse Starbucks has offered for its declining performance, inflation, post-COVID recovery, and changing consumer habits. In China, a competitor proved that millions of people want coffee every day and will buy it enthusiastically when priced fairly. Starbucks' problem in China, and increasingly everywhere else, is not that people stopped wanting coffee. It is that people stopped believing the premium was real. Between 2022 and 2024, Starbucks reported 6 consecutive quarters of declining comparable store sales. Transaction volumes fell 10% in a single quarter. The company's own chief executive officer admitted the strategy had failed and launched something called Back to Starbucks, an acknowledgement in the company's own language that they had drifted so far from what they built that they needed to announce a return to it as a business strategy. The new chief executive officer, Brian Niccol, brought in from Chipotle, announced a 30% menu reduction. He promised to bring back condiment bars. He said orders should be ready in 4 minutes. He wanted baristas to have time to connect with customers again. He used the words community coffeehouse in press releases with the same sincerity that companies use when they announce they are refocusing on their core values after years of doing the opposite. Starbucks cut 1,100 corporate jobs in February 2025, another 900 in September 2025. Stores started closing. Here is the full picture. Howard Schultz sold you the third place, a genuine, thoughtfully designed idea about what a coffee shop could mean in your daily life. He built that idea into one of the most recognized brands in human history. He was not wrong about what people wanted. They wanted it desperately. Then the company spent roughly a decade hollowing it out. It raised prices 94% above inflation. It converted the experience into a mobile ordering system. It stripped out the furniture. It pushed baristas to crank out complex drinks faster, with fewer staff, for wages that the baristas themselves eventually had to sue to improve. It funneled $17 billion to shareholders, and it kept charging a premium price for a premium experience that it had quietly discontinued. The question you have to ask when you hand over $7 for a latte is not whether the coffee is worth it. Coffee is a commodity. Espresso and milk and syrup cost less than $1 to produce at scale. What you were paying for was the chair, the warmth, the barista who knew your name, the feeling of being somewhere that was not home and was not work. Starbucks took the chair, took the warmth, automated the name, eliminated the feeling, and kept the $7. That is not a company that lost its way. That is a company that found a more profitable one and called it a mistake when the customers finally stopped showing up. The third place still exists. You can find it at the independent coffee shop around the corner, staffed by baristas who chose the job because they love coffee, charging you $4 for a latte made by someone who will be there tomorrow and still remember your order. Starbucks invented the idea that you deserve that. Then it decided the idea was not profitable enough and spent 20 years selling you a more expensive version of nothing. And somewhere in Seattle, Howard Schultz, worth approximately $4 billion, holder of the Starbucks title, lifelong chairman emeritus, is telling anyone who will listen that the company just needs to get back to its roots. The roots cost $2 in 1987. The latte is $7 now. Do the math.